The story of Stranger Things begins in 1983 in Hawkins, Indiana, with the mysterious disappearance of the young boy Will Byers. Most assume this is a typical missing child case, but Will's friends Mike Wheeler, Dustin Henderson, and Lucas Sinclair suspect something stranger is afoot. While looking for Will, they discover a mysterious young girl with a shaved head named Eleven. Eleven has escaped from a government facility, Hawkins National Lab, where experiments conducted on her have given her psychokinetic abilities. Eleven agrees to use her powers to help her new friends try to find and save Will, while the trio of Mike, Dustin, and Lucas teach Eleven what it's like to be a normal kid. Along the way, Mike and Eleven even begin to develop romantic feelings for each other. It turns out that Will is trapped in a place known as the Upside Down, a dark alternate dimension that Hawkins' lab was investigating that also happens to be inhabited by monstrous creatures known as Demogorgons. From his dangerous new location, Will finds a way to communicate with his mother Joyce, who never believed that her son's disappearance was as conventional as it seemed. Joyce manages to convince the town's carefree sheriff Jim Hopper to move forward with an unconventional investigation. When Hopper begins to suspect that experiments at Hawkins' lab might have something to do with Will's disappearance, he is constantly deterred by higher authorities. This emboldens Hopper to dig even deeper, disobeying his superiors and going rogue to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Mike's older sister Nancy is dating popular bad boy and hair icon Steve Harrington. When Nancy's friend Barb goes missing, she teams up with Will's outcast older brother Jonathan, the target of bullying from Steve's friend group, to investigate the strange things happening in their small town. Nancy and Jonathan are unaware that Barb has been taken into the Upside Down and killed by a Demogorgon, meaning everyone would need to act fast to save Will from a similar fate. In the end, Hopper and Joyce use a portal in Hawkins' lab to enter the Upside Down to find and rescue Will. This also brings catharsis to Sheriff Hopper, who is still haunted by the grief of losing his young daughter Sarah to cancer. Meanwhile, Nancy and Jonathan plan to attack and kill a Demogorgon, luring it to the Byers residence. An unaware Steve shows up at the worst possible moment, roping him into the plan to kill the monster. The trio fight and injure the creature, but the Demogorgon manages to escape. Elsewhere, the head of Hawkins' lab, Dr. Martin Brenner, has his team track Eleven and her new friends to the local middle school. The injured Demogorgon arrives, seemingly killing Brenner and his team before turning its sights on Eleven, Mike, Dustin, and Lucas. Eleven uses her powers to defeat the creature, sacrificing herself in the process. As the season comes to a close, Hopper heads into the woods and leaves behind some Eggo waffles, Eleven's favorite food, hinting at her survival. And Will Byers may have been returned home safely, but he secretly coughs up a slug-like creature and has a vision of the Upside Down, meaning he hasn't quite escaped danger just yet. You know, the final season of Stranger Things has got me thinking about all the streaming services I've signed up for but haven't used since my favorite shows ended. I actually just did the math and realized I'm spending over $100 a month on subscription services I don't even use anymore. Well, thankfully today's sponsor Rocket Money is here to help. Rocket Money is an all-in-one personal finance app that helps you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage your money better. The Rocket Money app is super easy to use. Once I connected my bank account, it identified all of my various subscriptions into a single list, and with just a few taps I could select the ones I didn't want anymore and wanted Rocket Money's help to cancel. Rocket Money has helped its customers save up to $740 a year by using all of the app's premium features. In total, they've helped customers save over $880 million in canceled subscriptions. But it's not just saving you money on unneeded subscription services. Rocket Money can also help lower your expenses by negotiating your monthly bills for you. Instead of having to contact customer service for your phone or internet bills yourself, Rocket Money's negotiators go to work for you to get the best possible rate. And did I mention that Rocket Money's app can help you create a customized budget in seconds and automatically analyze your accounts to help you save for your financial goals faster? So take control of your finances today. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to get started for free. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the recap. Season 2 of Stranger Things picks up nearly 1 year later. Mike still hasn't given up hope on somehow reuniting with Eleven. Will begins to suffer from increasingly severe upside-down visions, and Dustin and Lucas have begun pining over the same new girl, Max. In other relationship developments, Nancy and Steve break up, and Joyce has a new boyfriend, the lovable Bob. Oh, and Eleven is actually alive and well and has been living secretly with Hopper out in a secluded cabin this entire time. Although Hopper insists to Eleven that her living there in secret secret is for her own safety, 11 grows angry and resentful toward her new surrogate father. This leads to 11 breaking the rules and seeking out Mike. Unfortunately, 11 misreads an encounter between Mike and Max as flirtatious and decides against reuniting with her crush. Instead, 11 goes off in search of her biological mother, whom she'd been taken from at birth. 11 finds her mother catatonic and mentally broken by her experiences with Hawkins' lab. And so 11 goes off on another search, this time finding Callie, another girl taken by Dr. Brenner to experiment on. Callie takes 11 under her tutelage, training her to use her anger to strengthen her powers. It's eventually revealed that Will Byers has been infected by a villainous shadow monster dubbed by his Dungeons & Dragons loving friends as the Mind Flayer. Will begins creating seemingly erratic and random drawings that actually turn out to be a map of an upside-down network of tunnels underneath the town of Hawkins. Hawkins' lab has rebranded and installed a new director, Dr. Owens, to right their previous wrongs. They attempt to destroy the tunnels, but this causes Will to break down in agonizing pain. Will is taken to the lab where Dr. Owens hypothesizes that eradicating the tunnels could prove to be fatal to Will. And it's not just the Mind Flayer that our heroes have to worry about. Packs of loose young demogorgons nicknamed Demodogs have been unleashed on the town. A newly single and heartbroken Steve Harrington teams up with Max, Lucas, and Dustin, who adopts a Demodog named Dart, to stop the creatures from destroying Hawkins. The group fend off the Demodogs, then track them to Hawkins' lab. Along the way, they team up with Nancy and Jonathan, who have been trying to expose the truth of the Upside Down to the public in an attempt to get justice for Barb. Inside Hawkins' lab, Hopper, Joyce, Bob, Mike, Will, and Dr. Owens are attacked by the pack of Demodogs. Dr. Owens stays behind to help the others navigate safely out of the overrun lab, and Bob sacrifices himself to help the others escape. The entire group retreats to the Byers residence as the Demodogs give chase, and that's when 11 finally returns, sensing Mike was in danger, and saves everyone by defeating the creatures. After a very brief and celebratory reunion, the group formulates a plan to defeat the Mind Flayer, which would save Will and the rest of the town. Joyce, Nancy, and Jonathan take Will to Hopper's cabin where they overheat him to burn the Mind Flayer's virus out of him. Steve leads the rest of the kids to the Vine tunnels, now able to destroy them without hurting Will. This serves as a distraction, luring the remaining Demodogs to them, while Hopper and 11 return to Hawkins' lab to permanently close the portal to the Upside Down. 11 successfully uses her powers to close the gate, killing all of the remaining Demogorgons, including poor Dart. As the season comes to a close, Dr. Owens gives Hopper a forged birth certificate for 11, allowing her to live publicly as a normal child. Hawkins' lab is then permanently shut down after Nancy and Jonathan team up with disgraced journalist and conspiracy theorist Murray Bowman to expose the lab's experiments. At the middle school dance, everything is finally back to normal. Steve helps Dustin be cool, Lucas and Max kiss, Mike and 11 kiss, and the Mind Flayer is revealed to still be alive, towering over the school in the Upside Down and keeping watch over our heroes. In Season 3 of Stranger Things, the kids of Hawkins are trying to put their crazy past behind them and just be typical teenagers. Dustin returns home from summer camp with a new long-distance girlfriend, Susie, that his friends speculate is made up. Max and Lucas have developed an on-again, off-again relationship, and Mike and 11 are still going strong. So strong, in fact, that Hopper turns into a fully overprotective father and threatens Mike to stop seeing 11. This creates a strain in their relationship, which results in 11 breaking up with Mike. Meanwhile, the Starcourt Mall has been newly built in Hawkins and becomes a hotspot for the kids to hang out at. As for the adults, Steve is unsure of what to do with his life and takes a job working at the Scoops Ahoy ice cream shop in the mall. There he befriends and flirts with his new co-worker Robin. Jonathan and Nancy both become interns at the Hawkins Post, and Hopper develops romantic feelings for Joyce, who rebuffs his advances. When Dustin tries to communicate with his girlfriend Susie via radio, he accidentally intercepts a mysterious Russian transmission. He teams up with Steve, Robin, and Lucas's younger sister Erica to decode the message, revealing that Russians were unloading mysterious shipments at the Starcourt Mall at night. Upon further investigation, the group discovers an elevator leading to a Russian lab deep below the mall's surface. Inside the lab, the group finds Russian scientists attempting to reopen a portal to the Upside Down. Steve and Robin are captured and interrogated by the Russians, but are saved by Dustin and Erica. Following his brush with death, death, Steve confesses his true feelings for Robin, who in turn comes out to him as a lesbian. Meanwhile, Joyce begins to notice demagnetization around her home and office and brings Harper in to help her investigate. At first, they suspect the answer to once again lead back to Hawkins' lab, but instead find out from Hawkins' corrupt Mayor Klein that the Russians had been buying abandoned properties throughout town, including the newly constructed mall, for some mysterious, nefarious purposes. Eventually, Harper and Joyce befriend a kind Russian scientist named Alexei, who doesn't speak any English. They take Alexei to conspiracy theorist Murray Bowman to help translate. Alexei confirms to them that the Russians were attempting to reopen the portal to the Upside Down below the Starcourt Mall. The group is then pursued by a Russian soldier named Grigory, who kills Alexei for his betrayal. Nancy and Jonathan begin investigating the home of an elderly woman named Mrs. Driscoll, who is concerned about rabid rats eating her fertilizer. Nancy and Jonathan discover that this wasn't an isolated incident, as rabid rats are spotted all over town. Soon, Mrs. Driscoll herself is eating fertilizer, and Nancy and Jonathan realize that she's been possessed by the Mind Flayer. Also possessed by the Mind Flayer is Max's older brother Billy, who is used by the Mind Flayer to amass an army of possessed victims. 11 uses her powers to locate the Mind Flayer by going inside the possessed Billy's mind. He reveals that the Mind Flayer wants to kill her as revenge for closing the portal to the Upside Down. The possessed army then begins to dissolve together to form a giant organic mass, the physical embodiment of the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer attacks 11's group, seriously wounding 11. The group then teams up with Nancy and Jonathan to head to the mall to rescue Steve, Robin, Dustin, and Erica. 11 defeats the Russians but collapses due to her wound from the Mind Flayer. She realizes a piece of the Mind Flayer has been embedded inside her, and upon removing it, she suddenly loses all of her powers. Harper, Joyce, and Murray arrive at the mall to save the kids and destroy the Russian machine that is opening a new portal. As the kids try to leave, the Mind Flayer and Billy trap them inside the mall. 11 manages to get through to the possessed Billy, recounting his happiest memory with his deceased mother that 11 had witnessed when previously inside his mind. Billy then realizes all of the terrible things he has done and sacrifices himself to the Mind Flayer in order to save his sister Max and all of her friends. Down in the lab, Hopper, Joyce, and Murray race to the machine, guided by Dustin via radio. To shut down the machine, the trio needs to crack a safe that holds the necessary shutdown keys. The combination to the safe is the quantum mechanics equation for Planck's constant. Fortunately, Dustin knows exactly who to call for the solution and radios his very real camp girlfriend Susie. Susie, unaware of how dire Dustin's situation is, forces him to duet the theme song from Neverending Story before giving him the code. Hopper and Joyce then open the safe and grab the keys, ready to shut down the machine. Unfortunately, Grigory arrives and attacks Hopper. Hopper kills Grigory by throwing him into the machine, causing the whole system to malfunction. Hopper is left with no way to escape and gives Joyce the signal to destroy the machine anyway. A distraught Joyce turns the key, closing the gate and saving the day, but vaporizing Hopper in the process. With the gate to the Upside Down closed, the Mind Flayer in the mall collapses and dies. 3 months later, Starcourt Mall is destroyed and the corrupt Mayor Klein is arrested. The Byers family take in the now orphaned and powerless 11 and prepare to leave Hawkins for good. As the season comes to a close, Mike and 11 reaffirm their love for each other as 11 departs with the Byers. In season 4 of Stranger Things, 9 months have passed since the Mind Flayer's defeat at the Starcourt Mall. 11 has moved with the Byers family to California, forcing her and Mike into a strained long-distance relationship. And Mike and Dustin also begin to have a strained friendship with Lucas and Max. Lucas has joined the high school basketball team and befriended the popular jocks led by Jason, while Max is pulled away from everyone as she continues to grieve the death of Billy. Mike and Dustin then join the Hellfire Club, the school's Dungeons and Dragons club, which is led by the eccentric outcast Eddie Munson. When Jason's cheerleader girlfriend Chrissy is plagued with headaches and nightmarish visions, she pays Eddie a visit to buy drugs to cope with her symptoms. While in Eddie's trailer, Chrissy becomes possessed by an evil force from the Upside Down, which brutally murders her. When Chrissy's body is found, Eddie goes on the run as he becomes the police's prime suspect. Jason and his gang of bully jocks lead the charge in labeling Eddie and the Hellfire Club a group of satanic devil worshippers responsible for Chrissy's death and attempt to find Eddie to enact vigilante justice. As Mike departs Hawkins to spend spring break with 11 in California, Dustin, Max, and Lucas team up with Nancy, Steve, and Robin to uncover the truth behind Chrissy's murder. The group explains to Eddie their previous experience experiences with the Upside Down and name this new evil threat Vecna, who continues to possess and murder high school students. Nancy and Robin follow a lead to the Penhurst Psychiatric Institution where they interview a man named Victor Creel, who had been in prison decades prior for murdering his family. Victor explains to them that after his wife and young children moved into their new home in Hawkins, they experienced similar horrific visions as Chrissy before being possessed and killed. Victor was arrested for their deaths after no one believed his story. Nancy also figures out from Victor's tale that hearing his favorite song was what pulled him out of Vecna's possession and saved his life. Meanwhile, Max discovers that all of Vecna's victims experienced severe headaches and nosebleeds and were suffering from PTSD from past traumas, the same symptoms Max is currently experiencing. And that's when Max realizes that Vecna is possessing her as well. Fearing Vecna could kill her at any moment, Max writes letters to all of her friends, then heads to Billy's grave to read him a letter. At the gravesite, Max is possessed and taken to Vecna's altar in the Upside Down where he prepares to kill her. Nancy and Robin manage to relay to the others that music can break Vecna's possession, and they play Max's favorite song to her. This helps Max fight Vecna off and escape the Upside Down, saving her life. Dustin theorizes that new gates to the Upside Down are being opened at the sites of Vecna's murders. When Steve investigates the bottom of Lover's Lake to confirm Dustin's theory, he is pulled into the Upside Down and attacked by bat-like creatures. Nancy, Robin, and Eddie enter the Upside Down to save Steve, but are unable to return through the gate due to it being guarded by more of the creatures. And so the group decides to make their way through the Upside Down to Eddie's trailer to find another exit. Back in the real Hawkins, as the police begin to investigate the Hellfire Club for their involvement with Eddie, Dustin, Max, Lucas, and Lucas's sister Erica flee the cops and their parents to head to Eddie's trailer and save their friends. They manage to save Robin and Eddie from the Upside Down, but before Nancy escapes, she becomes possessed by Vecna. The villain reveals to Nancy the extent of his evil plans, promising to use the newly opened gates at the locations of his victims to fully break open the rift between the Upside Down and the real world, which would destroy all of Hawkins. Meanwhile, Mike arrives in California to spend his spring break with Eleven and the Byers family. He quickly discovers that although Eleven had told him she was doing great, she is actually depressed and mercilessly bullied. Eleven is also upset with Mike for not telling her he loves her. Will has his own issues with Mike, feeling abandoned by his best friend who only seems to care about Eleven. And Jonathan is dealing with his own relational issues, too afraid to tell Nancy that he is having second thoughts about their college plans, wanting to stay close to protect his family. The kids quickly have the house to themselves as Joyce receives a message from Hopper, revealed to have survived the Starcourt Mall explosion and is currently imprisoned in Russia. A kindly prison guard named Antonov agrees to help Hopper escape and tells Joyce to bring $40,000 to a Russian pilot in Alaska. Joyce teams up with Murray Bowman to head to Alaska, where they meet the eccentric pilot Yuri. Yuri betrays them, drugging Joyce and Murray, ratting out Antonov to the other Russians, and thwarting Hopper's escape attempt. As Yuri flies a captured Joyce and Murray to turn over to the Russians, they escape their binds and Murray uses his new black belt skills to subdue him. They hatch a plan to break Hopper out of prison, with Murray posing as Yuri to deliver Joyce and the real Yuri to the Russians. The plan works and the group are allowed to enter the prison, where they are taken to watch Hopper, Antonov, and a group of prisoners fight a Demogorgon. Hopper uses his prior experiences with the creature to save his and Antonov's lives, while Murray and Joyce reveal their ruse, subduing the guards and unlocking the doors to allow Hopper and Antonov to flee. Hopper and Joyce have an emotional reunion and the group make their escape, but upon learning of the dangers back in Hawkins, Hopper, Joyce, and Murray return to the Russian prison to battle their lab filled with Demogorgon test subjects in the hopes that it will help the kids in their battle against Vecna. Back in California, after her bullies publicly humiliate her, Eleven finally snaps and assaults one of them. After being arrested, Eleven is saved by Dr. Owens, who warns her of everything that is happening back in Hawkins. While higher-ups in the government believe Eleven could be responsible and is too dangerous, Owens assures her that he believes that she is good, and has been working on a program that could give her back her powers. Eleven agrees to go with Owens to attempt to restore her powers and save Hawkins from Vecna. When armed soldiers attack the Byers' house, Mike, Will, and Jonathan flee with Jonathan's stoner friend Argyle and race to find Owens and Eleven. Along the way, Will gives a rousing speech to encourage Mike, during which he implies that he's gay and in love with his best friend. Owens takes Eleven to a secret underground lab where he reveals that he's been working with a very much alive Dr. Brenner to develop an isolation tank known as Nina that would allow Eleven to access her forgotten memories and reawaken her powers. Inside Nina, Eleven remembers her time in Hawkins' lab under the care of Dr. Brenner, where she was bullied by her fellow superpowered experiments. Eleven had been befriended by a kind orderly who warned Eleven that Brenner wasn't to be trusted. Eventually, the orderly reveals himself to be One, the first child experimented on by Brenner, who had a device in his neck that suppressed his powers. Eleven helped remove the device to allow them both to escape, but the orderly instead massacred everyone in the lab. It turned out the orderly was actually Henry Creel, the son of Victor Creel. He had used his psychic abilities to murder his mother and sister, and though Victor was told Henry died, he was actually placed in the care of Brenner. And now that Eleven knew his villainous secret, he was going to kill her too. Eleven managed to overpower Henry, ripping open the first portal to the Upside Down and sending Henry through it, where he was transformed into Vecna. Back in the present, Eleven has fully regained her powers and wants to return to Hawkins to save her friends from Vecna, but Brenner doesn't believe she's ready and sedates her. And that's when the corrupt group of soldiers arrive, wanting to kill Eleven as they believe that she was the source of evil in Hawkins. Brenner protects Eleven and attempts to flee with her from the lab, but is shot and killed during the escape. Eleven regains consciousness and kills the pursuing soldiers, and is then rescued by Mike and the others. Back in Hawkins, the group devise a plan to defeat Vecna. Max, Lucas, and Erica head to the Creel house, where Max allows Vecna to enter her mind and possess her. While Vecna is distracted with Max, Steve, Nancy, and Robin enter the Upside Down to kill him. And to help distract the Legion of Bats from attacking Steve, Nancy, and Robin on their mission, Dustin and Eddie enter the Upside Down to act as decoys. Unfortunately, the plan quickly goes awry. Dustin and Eddie are overwhelmed by the bats, but instead of fleeing, Eddie sacrifices himself to buy his friends more time. Steve, Nancy, and Robin are all subdued by Vecna's vines, which begin to choke the life out of them. And while Lucas keeps watch over the possessed Max, the vigilante Jason shows up to confront him, still blaming the Hellfire Club for Chrissy's death. As Lucas and Jason fight, Max's favorite cassette tape is destroyed, meaning there is no way for Lucas to save her if things go wrong. Luckily, as Max is pursued by Vecna in her own mind, she has some very friendly company. Eleven enters Max's mind to fight Vecna, using an isolation tank created by Mike, Will, Jonathan, and Argyle. Vecna defeats Eleven and explains to her that every threat that she and her friends had faced in the past, including the Mind Flayer, was all thanks to him. And now, his plan is fully coming into fruition. Vecna begins to kill Max, starting by breaking her limbs. As Mike finally professes his love for Eleven in the real world, Eleven is given a renewed strength to fight Vecna. Meanwhile, Hopper, Joyce, and Murray successfully defeat the Russian Demogorgons, which clears away the bats and vines in the Upside Down. Finally freed, Steve, Nancy, and Robin attack Vecna's body, setting it on fire. As Vecna dies, he tells Eleven that despite her best efforts, she had still lost. Max succumbs to her wounds in the real world and dies in Lucas's arms, opening Vecna's final gate. With all of the gates open, they begin to rip through the entire town of Hawkins, destroying everything in their path and killing several people, including Jason. A distraught and defeated Eleven manages to use her powers to miraculously resurrect Max. 2 days later, Eleven, Mike, Jonathan, Will, and Argyle finally make it back to Hawkins to reunite with their friends. The entire town is evacuating, and Steve, Robin, and Dustin decide to volunteer at an emergency shelter. Max is alive, but in a coma with no trace of her in her own mind. Hopper finally makes it back to Hawkins to reunite with Eleven, and although the reunion is happy now, the group knows that their greatest battle yet is still ahead. Will Byers, still feeling his connection to the Mind Flayer, confirms to the group that Vecna is still alive. And now, the Upside Down is taking over Hawkins.